We've played a lot of Pokemon games on this channel, beating them how Nintendo intended, following various different Pokemon guides from multiple different publishers. Some of them are more straightforward than others, some are hilarious, and we started this with Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen with the official Prima strategy guide that I got when the game first came out. Now, I didn't expect that video to blow up the way it did and have as many follow-up videos as it did, but one comment I saw a lot on the original Beating Pokemon How Nintendo Intended video was that I didn't technically beat it how Nintendo intended since it wasn't the official Nintendo Power Guide. So I did the only logical thing, waited about a year and a half, scoured the internet for a copy of the official Nintendo Power Guide for FireRed and LeafGreen, overpay for a copy that wasn't ripped to shreds, and since the original video was just titled Beating Pokemon How Nintendo Intended It, today we're going to be beating Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen how Nintendo intended it. So let's take a look at this guide and hammer away. First, if you're new here, here's the generic subscribe plug and those analytics too, and secondly, in this series we follow the strategy guides trying to follow them as closely as possible to see how effective they are in guiding you through the game, while also trying to ignore my prior knowledge on this game as much as possible. The guide opens up with a full map of Kanto and the Cerulean Islands, making it look a lot smaller than it actually feels like when you're playing the game. It says when you first brave certain routes and cities, you'll proceed in a linear fashion, but eventually all of the Kanto and Cerulean Islands will open up for your full, free exploration. It then shows us how to use the controls. Since Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen pack in so much epic gameplay, you'll want to know the controls like the back of your hand. We learn about the key trainers here that we'll meet in the Kanto region, from the western Kanto countryside to the eastern shores. Along the way, you'll encounter friends, foes, and formidable Pokemon trainers. It says mostly what you'd expect from these various trainers. Like for Team Rocket, it mentions how they're a criminal organization that we'll most likely run into, although we'll definitely run into them since you can't beat this game without encountering them at least a couple of times. Then for the gym leaders, it says the final gym leader that you'll fight in Vermilion City is a mystery. His identity is veiled in a secrecy. However, this picture of the ominous man standing slightly farther away than the other gym leaders with a somewhat visible R on his shirt, much like those Team Rocket members right next to him have, makes it seem like he might be up to something. The next few pages cover the basics like battling, including this type advantage chart we should milk for every possible advantage, and the difference between smacking a foe with a physical attack or lashing a defender with a special attack. It then goes on to say berries provide a surprising zing, and if you're wondering, yes, the berry page is still intact towards the back of this guide, and it even shows examples of some good teams with diverse types, then a bad team with common types, showing the importance of attack type diversity. It also calls running dashing in this early part of the guide, which is interesting. Then shows us how to catch a Pokemon. It says although Oak tells us to catch them all, you may prefer to only catch those that will help you blast through battles with major style and maximum glory. It goes very in-depth with quite a variety of things, from the basics to trading with Pokemon Coliseum and XD even, version exclusives, making your way to Milo Tech, which I think is supposed to be a pun and not a typo, and it even talks about Pokemon Box, a huge solution. Pokemon Box is basically Pokemon Bank, but in 2004, but with a GameCube game that could only be purchased through the Pokemon Center, making it one of the rarest GameCube games to date. Pokemon Box is even shown on the back cover of the guide saying, "Gotta store 'em all," and how it's a vital tool, although you don't really need it to beat the game or anything, so I guess it isn't a vital tool. There's also this excerpt saying, "Think you know the Kanto region? Think again. It's packing more surprises, more Pokemon, more territory, and more technology than before." And Nintendo's official Pokemon FireRed and Pokemon LeafGreen Player's Guide reveals every single secret under the Kanto sun. Don't leave Pallet Town without it. The marketing on the back of this guide is rather aggressive, but that sums up the 32-page intro in this book. With all that out of the way, let's load up a brand new save file on Pokemon LeafGreen and hammer away at it exactly as Nintendo intended. Starting off, I pick Leaf and name ourselves C so the thumbnail can stand out a bit more from the original video, and of course name our rival Nintendo, or rather just Ninten since it didn't fit with the O. The guide says to spend a little time getting to know the neighbors of Pallet Town before we leave, although there's only one other house in this whole town, so we don't exactly have many neighbors. We leave so soon, then choose wisely among the 3 starter options after Professor Oak smacks down his hot-headed grandson. The guide doesn't really explain the starter choices much, but I did notice that many of the screenshots prior to this page feature Charmander or Charizard, so I just picked Charmander, dispatch our rival, pick up the free potion on Route 1, collect Oak's parcel, return it to Oak to get the Pokedex, and pay a visit to Gary's sister to get the town map. The guide then details Vermilion City, explains the Pokemon Center, and says shop smart, shop Pokemart. This old timer then teaches us how to catch a Pokemon, and that pretty much sums it up for the tutorial part of this game. That might be hard to believe if you're more accustomed to newer Pokemon games, which have a lot longer tutorials. And the next task we have to do is battle our rival on Route 22. It says to catch a Mankey here, since it will also help us for the first gym. And for the actual rival fight, it says catching Pikachu on Route 2 can help, but Route 2 doesn't even have Pikachu on it. So they must have meant the Viridian Forest. I just used Charmander to win this battle, then head into Viridian Forest and catch ourselves a Pikachu since the guide said it will give you a big advantage against the first couple of gyms. The first gym has 2 ground-type Pokemon, so I don't really know about that. But after rustling through the forest, we finally make it to Pewter City, the home of the first rec center. Here we can increase our cultural awareness by visiting the scholarly types, see the museum in the name of science, and fight for our freedom by fighting Brock so we can leave the city. The guide says how if you selected Charmander, like we did, you might have some trouble with this fight. However, if you catch a wild Mankey on Route 22, it will prove very useful against Brock. It was very useful indeed, taking out both of his Pokemon to give us our first gym badge in our Kanto journey. The guide also details things we can do later on in the game on the sections where you first visit the town, meaning we'll have to do a lot of flipping back and forth later on. But I noticed this section telling us about getting the old amber from the museum called Backdoor Bargains, and I can't help but to think that the guide writer must have thought they were so slick putting that in. Now that we have our dashing shoes, we can battle the eager trainers on Route 3 and see some bad deals as a shady traveling businessman wants to sell us a Magikarp for 500 Pokédollars. The guide says it isn't worth it since we can find them so commonly later on, so I don't buy it, although as you guys might know, I always like to buy the Magikarps when I can in this game. Then in Mount Moon, the guide says how we can find Geodudes here, which are good against the trainers here, so I catch one and name it Rock and use it for most of the cave. It also says to do whatever it takes to snag a Clefairy, so I catch one too, then meet the infamous Fossil guy. After defeating him, the guide actually asks us which fossil to pick, and shows what each fossil turns into and says to pick the one that bets fist your team even though you can't purify it for quite a while. So I picked the Helix fossil because it turns into a water type Pokemon and we don't have any water type Pokemon at the moment. We could have if we got the Magikarp, but that's besides the point. When we exit Mount Moon, we reach Route 4 where we deliver the goods by learning Mega Kick and Mega Punch. I guess the goods we're delivering are our strong punches and kicks, but as we continue along we arrive in Cerulean City. Cerulean City is home to a Pokemon gym and it's also the launching point for all of those who wish to visit the Pokemaniac known as Bill. Spend some time learning about berries, help foil a robbery, and check out the insane prices on wheeled transportation. It's all in a day's work for an up-and-coming Pokemon trainer. The first thing the guide wants to do here is battle our rival, Nintendo. Don't be rattled by the sudden appearance of an Abra. The psychic type will try to use teleport for the first few turns. I'm pretty sure his Abra only knows teleport at this point in the game, but we follow the guide anyway to use our Pikachu on his Pidgeot, our high defense Geodude on his Rattata, then back into Pikachu on his Squirtle for the victory. The guide has us do things in a strange order in Cerulean, and it wants us to punish the thief now, then it shows the Misty fight, but it also says to travel up north before the Misty fight and meet Bill, so I just go up north. Many trainers test our might along the way as we fight through the 6, didn't realize the Nugget Bridge was in Toronto, and make it to Thrill Bill. Here we find an odd creature, which is just Bill, and after helping him out we get some cruise ship tickets and can now prepare to fight Misty in her water type gym. The guide recommends electric types for this, so I mainly use Pikachu, although this battle was harder than I thought it would be for a Pikachu. I end up losing the first and second time because her Starmie is just really strong, takes hits really well, and has water pulse, which can confuse you. One thing I noticed is that the guide didn't mention any of the hidden berries you can get throughout the game, and if you don't know, there's actually a berry you can get next to the Pokemon Center before Mount Moon, and that's the Person Berry, which helps cure confusion, which is great for the gym against Misty, and I always get it when I play through the game myself, but since the guide didn't say to get it, we don't have it. We eventually shock Misty and get our second Rec Center identification though. The guide also does detail the Berry Powder Trader Man here, someone who I always forget is in this game, and he is a berry-obsessed man who gives you a berry powder jar if you have any berries, but since again, the guide made no mention of berries in this game, and getting berries in this game is a lot harder than it was in say Ruby and Sapphire, we don't have any berries, so we can't get the berry powder jar. Instead, I just continue south into Vermilion City, the city that boasts a gym and a man who will give us a fishing rod. First, we seek and destroy by getting the VS Seeker in the Pokemon Center, get the fishing rod, yakety yak with the Pokemon Fan Club guy to get the bike voucher, have a far-fetched idea by trading for a Farfetch for a very common Spearow, as this is the only way to get a Farfetch in this game, then board the SS Anne. Here we meet our French-speaking rival for a third time as he unleashes 4 powerful Pokemon. He goes down in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, so we go upstairs, see the captain, make the cut by getting the HM for cut, then go to fight Lieutenant Surge. His Pokemon are a fierce bunch, so we use our ground-type Geodude as the guide suggests and avoid water and flying types as they would be decimated by Lieutenant Surge. Now I do think it is good that the guide suggested we catch a Geodude to Mount Moon because it is very helpful for this very moment as well. But I think it would be nice if the guide had recommended that you also go to Diglett Cave first and perhaps catch a Diglett, as it's very conveniently placed close to the gym and has Pokemon that type trump the gym leader. But for some reason, no guides about Kanto mention that. Anyway, after a few magnitudes from our trusty rock, we defeat Surge and get our 3rd gym badge. From here, we can do the Nido Shuffle by swapping our Nidos with another in-game Nidoran trade, go through the Diglett's Cave and get the Flash HM, then return to Cerulean City to get the bike, and make our way towards the Rock Tunnel. Later on around this area, we can catch a big one, being Zapdos in the nearby power plant after we get Surf. But for now, we shed some light on the subject by using Flash in this dark cave so we can actually see, as going through this cave without Flash is rather painful. We teach Graveler Rock Slide from this move tutor in the cave I didn't even know was here, and make it to the township of Lavender, home of the scariest skyscraper around, but we can't get to the top of the tower just yet. We can still do the rival battle around here though, and use our electric type moves against his shockingly electric weak team to defeat him with haste. After that, we trek on over the next route and fight a bunch of trainers, and I'm now just noticing how for the underground tunnels in this game, which are just a straight line, the guide has an A to mark the entrance of them and a B to mark the exit in case you get lost. We then arrive in the biggest burg in Kanto, Celadon City, home of the world's largest department store. Not sure if that still holds up like 8 generations later, but there's a ton to do here, like get tea for 1 from this nice lady, then share it with 3 random security guards so we can press the game later on, get a coin case from a man down on his luck in the restaurant, and learn nothing from his story as we then proceed to gamble a bit ourselves, and use the pretty printer pictures to print our team on the back of the trainer card. I always liked this feature as a kid when I first played through the game, and if you're curious about the team that we have so far, there it is. There's some other small tasks here, but for now we have to go through the back door, of course, and get ourselves an Eevee. The back of this guide then has a full Pokedex showing more about each Pokemon and how to evolve Eevee as well, so we might do that later on. With all the fun in Celadon City out of the way, we can take on Erika now, Celadon City's Grass-type gym leader. Her main strategy is to hit us with status conditions like Sleep, Paralyze, and Poison, so we bring along some full heals and use our Fire-type starter Pokemon to hammer away at her Grass-type Pokemon and get our next gym badge. This bustling city is also hiding one of Team Rocket's secret hideouts beneath the game corner. Most of the Team Rocket grunts here use normal and poison-type Pokemon almost exclusively, and luckily we have 3 of the 4 recommended types since Charmeleon just evolved into Charizard. When we deliver the goods and see Giovanni, the guide still doesn't outline his team and only seems to do so with rival fights and gyms, Some guides even outline every single trainer you see in the wild on random routes and stuff, and some like this just don't outline that many. But it does say Giovanni specializes in ground and rock Pokemon. The first time I read that, it seemed a bit awkward, and it seemed like they just wrote ground twice, but they just mean ground type Pokemon, and then Pokemon who are ground type and rock type at the same time. Graveler, which is a rock and ground type at the same time, and Primate match up so nicely for Giovanni's team, allowing us to get the Sylph Scope from him so we can return to Lavender Town and climb the tower. It makes mention of Haunter, so I did catch a Ghastly here too and use it on the team since I've really just been using this Graveler, Charizard, Pikachu, and Primeape, and could really use some more team members to flesh out our roster. Here in the tower, the Shadow Nose, kind of ominous, as we reveal the Shadow Marowak and defeat it, then save Mr. Fuji and can now make it to Saffron City since we can just give the guard some tea. Here we have the Psychic Friend Network where we get the Psychic TM from Mr. Psychic that we can teach to our new Haunter. We can go ringside with Charizard in the Fighting Dojo and get a Hitmonchan, then go into the Sylph Building and battle what felt like 100 Team Rocket grunts, or should I say snorts. Eventually the guide says, "You deserve a break today. Thanks guide, you too, and so do you the viewer," alluding to the conveniently placed beds we can use to rest up. Then there's rival battle number 5, and our rival starter reached its ultimate evolution, being a Blastoise, and the rest of his team is still mostly weak to electric. It does tell us to hit Alakazam with strong physical moves like it normally does, but this time it specifies not to use fighting moves since fighting is weak to psychic. After laying waste to our rival, we get Lapras in the final lap, then he's blasting off again as we meet Giovanni and battle him with ground type attacks for a nice little anime reference. And after defeating him, the grateful Prez we saved gives us the Master Ball to catch any Pokemon we want. And from here, the guide is a little bit unclear. I know that we are technically supposed to go to Fuchsia City now and battle Koga so we can level up a bit since Koga is technically the 5th gym leader, although his Pokemon are most of the same level as Sabrina. And then after that, we come back to Saffron to fight Sabrina, but the flow of the guide made it seem like we should battle Sabrina first since we're already here too. And I feel like a lot of people easily made this mistake since the gym order in this game is a bit wonky. So I head into Sabrina's gym where her 3 psychic types are weak to Dark, Ghost, and Bug type strikes. Then her Venomoth has several weaknesses, and we're likely to have a Pokemon with Psychic to take care of the Venomoth, as well as our Charizard, which just destroys it. Her gym went by a lot easier than I thought, since Sabrina tends to be rather difficult, especially since our levels were a bit lower than I wanted them to, but Haunter got most of the KOs here, sort of like what Ash did in the anime, to give us our 6th gym badge, or should I say 5th gym badge, since we only have 5 now. With the Pokeflute, we can now head over to the Cycling Road, but first we have to deal with a pain in the Snorlax. The guide says how it's a major rarity in Kanto since there's only 2 you can catch, so I catch one and add it to the team over Primeape. This Juggernaut is definitely worth the trouble. Fuchsia City is a place of great opportunity. You can beat down Koga, the local gym leader, to get the Soul Badge. Before that though, we hook better gear by getting a good rod, then slip out the back door, again, to catch ourselves a Goldeen with our new rod. We get the gift of the Golden Gab by finding the Warden's lost golden teeth, and sink our teeth into great finds by also finding the Surf HM, which is great for our newly acquired Lapras. Before we can fight the gym leader Koga though, I evolve Pikachu, then bring in an armload of antidotes for Koga's poison-type foes. He and his gym minions sling poison conditions left and right. Psychic-type moves devastate Koga's team fast, so I use Haunter to take care of most of them. And don't get fooled by his levitating poison types that are immune to ground types. This gives us our 5th, or should I say 6th gym badge, and the next thing the guide says to do is take a break and go to the power plant now that we have access to Surf. We zap into Zapdos power and catch Zapdos, although I don't add it to the team since I already have Raichu, which is also electric type, and I'd rather just use the team we have right now. The guide from here highlights other optional things you can do like catching Articuno, and shortly after exploring the Sevi Islands. But since they're all optional, I'll just skip them for now and maybe make a part 2 follow-up video to this one with the post-game and the extra elements if we hit, say, 4,269 likes. After that, we surf on over to Cinnabar Island, which may be small and quiet, but is also plagued by odd going-ons. A large building called the Pokemon Mansion has fallen into disrepair, and rumors of genetically altered Pokemon are circulating through the populace. Sounds a bit like Stranger Things, but first, it's alive, alluding to the fossil revival lab in this town. TikTok, which you should follow me on by the way, link in the description, alluding to the metronome move tutor here. And of course, the gym we need to open by finding the key in the bottom of the mansion. No idea how the gym key got all the way over here, but this allows us to fight Blaine and his 4 high-leveled Pokemon pack a wallop, but he has a significant weakness. Surf will decimate his team, so we use Lapras and bring along some burn heals to win this battle. Now we have to return to Vermilion City for one final gym battle against Giovanni and his fierce team of Pokemon that all share the ground typing. The guide recommends Pokemon we've been using already for this gym, like a strong water type with Surf, which we have in Lapras, a ghost and poison type, which we have in Haunter. I think it's the only ghost and poison type line in this game. And it even mentions how this ghost and poison type should have Levitate, so I don't know why they didn't just strictly name Haunter or Gengar or even Ghastly. Giovanni goes down in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, and you again, sheesh. We have our final rival battle, and he has a well-balanced team as usual. The guide says pretty much exactly what it has said for the rival fight for the whole game, with his Alakazam being a toughie, although it wasn't that bad. We boulder dash and go under to get through the Victory Road and make it to the final destination of our journey, the Indigo Plateau. We have 5 more battles before we can claim the title of the world's best Pokemon trainer. While we're getting ready to rumble, the guide recommends to level up, stock up on items, and fix our team around a bit. It shows some suggested Pokemon, and of the 5 categories it suggests, we have 3 of those categories covered, and so far I think we did a pretty good job of using Pokemon that fit exactly what the guide recommended. I don't think there was a point at all in this guide where the guide suggested a specific type or Pokemon or move that we didn't have. First up is Lorelei with the recommended move types of Electric, Grass, and Rock, even though she has all water types for the most part. So Lorelei uses dual type Pokemon, all but one share the Ice type. Slowbro, her Water and Psychic type, also knows the powerful Ice Beam attack. Fire type attacks won't get a bonus when used against a Water and Ice type, so try attacking Dugong, Cloyster, and Lapras with Electric or Grass type attacks, which we do with our Raichu. A tough fighting type with like moves can come in handy against them as well. Rock type moves will do extra damage to Lorelei's entire team, except for her Slowbro. But don't have a Rock type use the move, it will be destroyed by her Water type attacks. If you're having trouble, bring out a Pokemon that knows Toxic and try to outlast your foe. That one wasn't too bad. Then next up we have Elite Four Bruno. Bruno's Pokemon look tough, but they have a couple of glaring weaknesses that you can exploit. Onix is doubly vulnerable to Grass and Water type moves. A Water type Pokemon that knows Surf can usually KO it in one turn, which we have in Lapras. His 3 Fighting type Pokemon will fall before Psychic type attacks, especially if they are delivered by a Psychic type Pokemon. If you don't have good Psychic type attacks, try Flying type moves. Remember that Ghost type Pokemon are immune to Fighting type attacks, which will give you an edge. If you have a high level Slowbro that knows Surf and Psychic, you can probably win this battle using it alone, although I end up mainly using Haunter for this one. I also taught it Giga Drain because he has 2 Pokemon that are doubly weak to Grass. Poor Agatha. She's convinced that her Poison type Pokemon are the best, but one go around with a strong Psychic type will set her straight. If you bring a Psychic type Pokemon that knows Psychic, you should be able to get through the battle without a scratch, even if your Pokemon is a few levels lower than her team. Use a Psychic type with high speed. Otherwise, the Ghost and Poison types could get the drop on you with super effective Ghost type moves. If you don't have a good Psychic type, try sending out a Poison type of your own, which I guess we do with our own Haunter. At the very least, it will nullify their constant attempts to inflict the Poison status condition. And then finally, fourth up, we have Elite Four Lance. Lance will provide your first taste of Dragon type Pokemon, a rare type that has very few weaknesses. Ice type attacks are your best bet for taking them down, especially if they're fired by an Ice type Pokemon, and we have a Lapras with Ice Beam, so this was pretty nice. Dragon type attacks will also be effective if you happen to know any. If Ice type moves are in short supply, you can try to outlast the Dragon types by sending in a Pokemon with a great special defense rating and using a very powerful attack such as Hyper Beam, Psychic, or Double Edge. Use an Electric type move to handle Gyarados, and Water or Electric moves on Aerodactyl. Lance uses the Outrage move a lot, so be prepared. We were pretty prepared with a Lapras. So, it's come to this. Your final battle is against your rival, who has stalked you from day one. Use Electric type attacks to blast Pidgeot from the sky. The Electric type moves will also work wonders against Gyarados and Blastoise. Water type attacks will drown Rhyhorn and Arcanine, and fire type attacks will fry Executor and Venusaur. Your rival usually saves Alakazam for last, so make sure that one of your Pokemon has enough HP left to take it on. If you have a Ghost and Poison type, like the guide's favorite, try to put Alakazam to sleep before you bring it out. That way you can get off a shot or two before the Psychic type responds with a Psychic type attack. Unless your Pokemon are extremely high level, you'll probably need a lot of revives, lemonades, and max potions. A full revive or two wouldn't hurt either, not sure where to get those full revives though. If Pokemon fall in battle, don't revive them until you have a good type matchup. That way your in-battle Pokemon won't be destroyed when you spend a turn reviving. Between Lapras, Raichu, and Charizard a little bit, we take down our rival, and with that, we beat Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen how Nintendo Power intended it, thanks to this Nintendo Power guide with all the clues that we can use. Overall, this was a lot of fun, as Generation 1 and Kanto in general hold a lot of nostalgia for me. As for the guide itself, it really wasn't bad, but was a bit confusing with some flipping back and forth, and the placement of some of the gyms were a bit off. I do have to say that the Prima guide was better since it was just straight up a lot funnier, and although it had its fair share of errors and didn't make sense in some spots too, and was also just missing half of the Sevi Islands, it made for a more fun experience, which I think is what it's all about. The back of this guide is jam-packed with extra info too, which is nice though, and overall if you're a kid playing through this game for the first time and you saw this guide on the shelf while you were checking out, and you picked it up, it probably would have helped you a lot. Although I feel like most of us barely used these guides when we got them as kids and just liked reading them and looking at the pictures, or cutting out the berry pages for no reason. That's part of why I like these guides so much. There's just a lot you can do with them aside from just playing through the game with them. With all that out of the way though, that wraps up our Kanto journey for now. So thanks for watching, have a good rest of your day, and bye bye.